100 years ago, Uruguay laid the foundation to become a pioneer country. The citizens were the first to access rights. Access to education was for everyone. Our country was able to bring in scientific talents of the world to contribute their knowledge. We developed infrastructure and we opened our window to the world. The entrepreneurial spirit led the way to innovative achievements in a short time. We were a very young country. In the past 100 years, our country has experienced different avatars. Times of growth, setbacks, crises. Even in the most difficult times, Uruguay honored its commitments. Because we are small, we need to adapt to a changing world. The fast pace of global changes require rapid and intelligent adaptive capacity. With that same spirit of our pioneers, today it is we who have the responsibility of giving opportunities to our people. For this, it is essential to create stability and build sustainable public policies to have the people's trust in our country. We have learned that the country's fiscal and financial health is the basis for development. Uruguay has been working hard to achieve progressively higher levels of economic and social development, and has chosen to follow strategic guidelines to achieve this goal. Firstly, inclusive growth. Secondly, opening the country to the outside world. And thirdly, commitment to quality, a mandatory path to be followed by a geographically small country, but with great potential. There are no successful and sustainable experiences of economic and social development other than those based on macroeconomic systems. It is with this firm conviction that we have been working and have made very profound transformations in different areas, such as the tax system, tax administration, budget management, and public debt administration and management. In the past years, the Ministry of Economy led reforms in 3 areas to have healthy public accounts: an income and tax management reform, a change in the design of our national budget, and the difference between both, public debt management. To implement all of this, it was imperative to transform the budgetary process. The budgetary process that began in 2005 started with a practice that I believe was appreciated by everyone, at Parliament level in particular. Our first aim was to have a macroeconomic report of the country's financial situation as a context for what was going to be the budget proposal, and have fiscal and financial planning to prepare a budget that was consistent with what we expected would be feasible to implement. In past periods, the budget meant nothing. There was no assurance that there would be compliance with budget allocation. The Parliament approved things that were not necessarily going to be carried out, and the power was given to the Ministry of Economy and the executive power for making the necessary cuts, because it was absolutely impossible to implement budget law expenditures, and the executive power was responsible for establishing priorities. We turned that process around. Our budget formulation is now consistent with fiscal and financial planning, and political priorities are explicitly included. We created the National Budget Unit to change the way we designed and prepared the budget. The role of the National Budget Unit, UPN, was essential because it centralized in few people, technical and political leaders, who, with great effort, were able to visualize our weaknesses in terms of information and ways of working. And through external systems, but linked to the large budget implementation base of the Budget and Accounts Office, managed to simplify the whole procedure for the parties raising the proposals and for those in charge of making corrections. The National Budget Unit covered a need of all national budget agencies. It put a human face to a place that was not personalized. I call the National Budget Unit the bad guys. They are very good people, but they are the ones who make the cuts and give us the guidelines. It is prepared, and during the next 5 years, they do the monitoring. There is a lot of control over implementation. It is very important to provide the state with institutionalization. First, to give assurance, create rules, and institutionalize compliance with rules. This is one way to strengthen the state and the institutional quality. Also, institutionalization contributes to making processes more permanent and not easily reversed. This should be a state position and not something that changes from government to government. To institutionalize the changes in the processes, it was necessary to advance and find new ways of preparing the budget. Regarding the budget process, we could say that the first budget we prepared back in 2005 was indeed very traditional, not only because of our lack of experience, but also due to the resources we had available. The people in the Budget and Accounts Office worked 24 hours a day for about 1 week. We worked long hours, starting at 8 in the morning, and some days we worked until 3 or 4 a.m., then rested 2 or 3 hours, and at 8 in the morning we were back in the office again. I remember sitting for many hours responding to the minister's request of checking if the articles were included in the budget. It became imperative to include technology in the budgetary process. I believe that we created a lot of synergy between the National Budget Unit and the National E-Government and Information Society Agency, AGESIC. The legal, regulatory, and operational frameworks that came with AGESIC were essential for conducting this whole process. They were very clear about the entire budget process and were able to simplify it as much as possible. A firm decision to move forward despite all obstacles. Since 1986, there have been resounding changes, and in the last 7 or 8 years, when the new systems were consolidated, and with the support of AGESIC, a new way of preparing the budget was quickly achieved. The change to the 5-year budget approved in 2015 was substantial. We can now monitor through a computer the status of our article from home. We can see whether it's been approved, modified. We can follow the process of a file in real time. We operate from our desks, as I say. It was different before. The real changes in the budget practice are not only about the transparency of knowing that they are included in a draft budget, but rather knowing that when the budget is approved, it will be fulfilled. This adds transparency and democracy to the process, because what is written and approved in the budget law is essentially what is implemented. A clear way of setting objectives was established within the administration. As an essential part of the transformation process, a special effort was made to improve the data provided to the Parliament, so that those responsible for analyzing and approving the budget could have more information for their appraisal. There was a significant qualitative change after 2005. I have highlighted this year after year. The Economic Financial Report is fundamental, and in our opinion, it develops the commitments and estimates on the basis of which the executive prepares its proposal. I consider that the executive branch delivers a large amount of information that many times we do not use adequately. The real one, the main one, is the budget. The first, where the 5 years begin, where the government presents its 5-year plan. I have the impression that from the Ministry's unit, they are trying to give us good information, and we must continue along those lines. I consider that many things have improved. There is a lot of complementary material for analysis. We don't have enough time to take advantage of the abundant work conducted by the Ministry of Economy and its units in the national budget delivered to Parliament. The information available every time the economic team comes to present the budget and the discussions with the economic team itself give all the legislators a much better understanding of the country's situation, the progress achieved in its program areas, and the expected results for each policy. The grounds have been laid out. Today, our achievements allow us to set new challenges to improve public resource allocation. We have managed to institutionalize the presentation and realization, and we are in a position to move forward and achieve a new stage in this period, and set the improvements for the next 5 years in terms of program costs and results obtained, regarding the effectiveness and efficiency of all implementing agencies. We must continue to promote this work along these lines in order to achieve what we are still lacking. That is, to unify the entire process, from credit allocation, establishing programs, to results obtained. As financial manager, I would demand a little more flexibility in terms of ministry management, and would immediately modify the ordered text of Financial Accounting and Administration, TOCAF. These are challenges to improve ministry management. I have a personal challenge that I haven't achieved yet, which is the implementation of results-based management in my ministry. It could work very well, and we could start with the accrual basis of accounting, which is a must for the central administration. The players suggest changes according to their point of view. It is about changing the perspective. Instead of making an incremental analysis of spending, referring exclusively to the increase in spending, include all that spending that has been voted for a long time and that is part of the budget, but does not externalize for discussion purposes. The legislative branch has little or no preparation to study budgetary laws. The institutional design, prepared many years ago, gave independence and autonomy to the Court of Audit. In some way, it reduced the legislative power's control over the executive power. We focus much more on articulating, which is the budgetary reform, than on accountability or analyzing budget content. If I were to give an opinion on a qualitative leap, I would say that we should move more decisively to a results-based budget, setting objective indicators to measure expenditure quality and to assess whether the money spent by the state to obtain certain objectives is fulfilled. Accountability should explain the results of budget implementation in a certain period of time, and to assist in making changes where necessary, to make corrections or adjustments. It is very important to monitor implementation. We like budgets that have goals, and where we can monitor if those goals are being fulfilled. This is fundamental, but it is not what we see today. Actually, what we see is the articulation that comes with accountability, the corrections and looking forward. There is no looking at the past. It's always been like that. It didn't start with this government. It has always been the same problem. 100 years ago, Uruguay challenged the world, and today we are proud of the improvements obtained. With that same spirit, institutional reforms were carried out 10 years ago, aimed at improving our country's capacity to adapt to the changes and create opportunities for the future. We created the National E-Government and Information Society Agency, Hacia, for the inclusion of technology. For equal opportunities in education, the Ceibal Plan was created. For innovation, the National Agency for Research and Innovation, ANI. The Debt Management Unit and the National Budget Unit were created to improve the country's national budget and financial management. Adequate tax and financial management is not an end in itself. It is a means for the organizations responsible for implementing public policies to do so in a foreseeable and sustainable context.